Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields.
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Guys.
Hey.
Yo.
How's it going?
It's
going.
going.
My gosh. I am exhausted.
I'm exhausted. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. We've been doing this program, this little internet radio program of ours, for 3 whole years.
Yeah.
What? 3 years.
Every damn Sunday for 3 years.
Yeah. So we decided to do a live show. We've got a Zoom full of beautiful faces.
Yeah.
That we are looking at, that listeners at home don't get to see, but maybe we'll throw it up on I think we're going to try and get it up on the YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube in a few days probably. But what a treat. What a treat. We have an international assemblage of heretics from all over the world. We're very excited by this.
Yeah.
And hopefully they are too.
Well, by now, see, what they have learned is that we record backwards. We record all of our segments first, and then we talk about them
literally backwards. We learn phonetically the language backwards, and then we play it backwards, and that's the show.
It's backmasking. So we record all and then we play it forward, and it's great. So yeah,
with fun show. We're going to start with Uncle Doug as his dream of being a game show host.
That's the closest I've ever gotten to my dream of being a literal guy smiley. We're going to play a game, another version of Square That Circle, but with a live audience this time.
But with real people, not just us. So that's
with real people getting lucky with stupid questions.
Yes,
and there will be prizes. And then we're going to reflect a little bit on 3 wasted years.
Yeah, exactly. And there won't be prizes for that, except the journey. The journey is the destination. That's that one.
Wow, that's like Deepak wise,
right? That was some deepities right there.
What a full circle.
And then we're gonna have a Q&A. We're gonna have actual people who listen to our podcast, ostensibly, chime in and ask us some questions, and we will struggle to answer them.
And we'll do a terrible job answering them.
It will just be a nightmare.
So join us, won't you?
Yes.
On the other side of the veil, if you remember your handshake and your secret name.
What is wanted? It is the patriarchal grip. Grab yourself with the patriarchal grip, and let's move on.
And by the way, I happen to know Dan's wife's Andrea's temple name.
Oh, that's true. And
I will reveal it now, and it is Ruth.
Oh, Ruthie Ruth. All right, there you go.
I'll see you on the other side of the veil, Ruth.
Okay, we'll call everyone forward from the afterlife or whatever.
All right, let's do it.
Well, Uncle Dan.
Hey, what?
Life isn't all fun and games.
How dare you?
But
your life isn't. My life is a bed of roses.
It is a bed of roses, which is a terribly painful thing.
Yeah, there are lots of thorns. So when
it's a stupid thing to make a bed out of.
My fun and games in there, I get tore up pretty good.
But sometimes it's fun and games.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, and sometimes those games. Yeah, sometimes it's like fun games that are fun.
And sometimes those games include prizes.
Would you guys please stop raising the bar on this game? It is not going to be funny.
Oh, Uncle Doug, come on, man. The pressure's on, baby. You're the one that signed up to do this game. We're doing the live show. We're going to use some listeners.
Doing it live.
Fuck it. We're doing it live.
It's intimidating because normally I just talk to a blank screen. And I don't get to see all of the people not laugh at my jokes. So
here they are.
This is going to be a little tough. All right, guys. Should I take it away?
Yeah,
take it away.
Back in episode 155, we discussed what is perhaps the most ridiculous element of the modern Mormon church, although the competition is fierce. The Book of Abraham is the equivalent of returning from summer break, bragging about your girlfriend in Canada, only to have your mother come on the PA to deny that you even went to Canada and that you actually spent your summer masturbating to old issues of National Geographic.
Sorry for any young listeners out there. That's your parents will tell you what that is.
Yes, earmuffs. And yet, because some of the only doctrines that differentiate the Mormon Church from every other run-in-the-mill Protestant sects are laid out there, including the pre-existence, the multiplicity of gods, the eternal progression of the Spirit, and of course, the maybe planet, maybe star kolob that most practicing Mormons would prefer that you did not know about, they are stuck with it. For a deeper dive into this sad and silly document, go back and listen to that episode. Very briefly, the Book of Abraham is a translation of some Egyptian papyruses that fell into the hands of Joseph Smith in the 1830s that he claimed told the story of the biblical Abraham in Egypt, written by the big man himself.
All true.
All true.
Written by his stabbing hand, by the way. He kept his stab hand strong, but he also wrote his eponymous book with it.
Mm-hmm. We now know exactly what these papyruses actually say. And before anybody asks me, and Uncle Mark took me to task for this, the plural of papyrus is papyri or papyruses. So,
oh wow,
what?
I stuck with the one. I'm not changing streams now. So
it's papyri. You're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just go with moose.
The charitable term for what Joseph claimed that these things said is, quote, bullshit, end quote. But if what Joseph claimed is bullshit, then doubt must be cast on the other translations of Joseph, calling into question the legitimacy as a prophet, therefore shaking the very foundations of the Mormon Church.
Yeah, I don't like it.
So stuck with the choice of trying to explain these contradictions or spending the rest of your life with your fingers in your ears proclaiming, nah, 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 nah. Apologists have wasted long hours and barrels of ink trying to do just that. The results of which are what we call here in the business comedy gold. I thought today we could dig into some of these.
Comedy golden plates. Nobody's ever actually seen the gold. We just claim it. There were no witnesses.
I thought today we could dig into some of these apologetics with nobody's favorite game, Square That Circle.
We need a Square That Circle theme.
We do. So the rules of the game are simple. We will choose a contestant. I will set out one problem with the Book of Abraham, read apologetics, one of which is a real Mormon apologetic. The other two were written by yours truly. Your job is to guess which one is true, I guess is the wrong word for it, but not written by me. And the winner will, of course, receive a How to Heretic t-shirt.
Yeah.
So,
woo. That is
like the one Hal Prentice is sporting right now, his beautiful Heretic shirt.
There are stakes for this thing.
Not only that. Okay, yeah. So let us begin with choosing a contestant, boys.
All right. I'll choose anyone who wants to be a contestant. Wave your hands furiously, and I'll choose the first one.
All right.
And the first one will be Nick. I see Nick waving his hand. There may be more than one Nick, I hope. But Nick, unmute yourself and say hello.
Hello.
Hello, Nick. That's the one. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Yourselves?
We're good. And where are you in this fine world?
I am in central Pennsylvania.
All right. We get a lot of Pennsylvanians.
Yeah. In our remember Zooms. That I think our first Zoom meeting, Pennsylvania won like all the prizes. I don't know what was going on, but
all right. That's good. Yeah. Nick, Doug, here's Nick. Take it away.
Hello, Nick. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
Now, Nick, quick question. Do you have any experience with the Mormon spectrum? Are you any part of the big vanilla umbrella of Mormonism?
No, I grew up Pentecostal evangelical.
All right. Well, this will all be Greek to you, so enjoy.
This is delightful, yeah.
Okay, Nick, here we go. The Book of Abraham to this very day begins with this statement by Joseph Smith. Quote, "A translation of some ancient records that have fallen into our hands from the catacombs of Egypt. The writings of Abraham while he was in Egypt, called the Book of Abraham, written by his own hand upon papyrus." End quote. This statement presents several problems before we even get into the text of the Book of Abraham. Joseph emphatically and unquestionably states that the translation he is putting forth is A, this isn't the question yet, this is just laying out the context, that is A, directly translated from the papyruses that he has purchased, and B, that they chronicle the trials and tribulations of Abraham while in Egypt, and C, that these chronicles were written by none other than the father of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam himself. We know now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that these papyruses...
It was B.
God damn it,
Did I get it?
Andrew,
I stopped
paying
Sorry,
attention.
Nick.
Is that bad?
Oh,
Mute
sorry.
Mark.
Yeah.
We now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that these papyruses were ordinary funerary texts from the Book of Breathing that were buried with all Egyptians at the time. They made no mention whatever of Abraham or any of the things that Joseph put forth. They were written 1500 to 25 years BCE, when Abraham may have lived, if he lived at all. And of course, they were not written by the hand of Abraham. So let's start with the last claim first. As in a forest of fantastical claims, this is the most fantastic. Joseph was too much the fabulous to simply say this was a story about Abraham, but that it was written by Abraham himself. The fact that everything from the date to the contents of the papyruses contradict this claim. How do the good people at fairmormon.org square that circle? Is it A, quote, by his own hand, was a common way at the time for subsequent scribes to attribute authorship to the original writer, much the same way that an author's name appears on a book, even though it was the printing press that actually put the ink on the paper? Is it B, papyruses were delicate mediums, and so the original writings of Abraham in 2500 BCE were never going to last into the modern era, so Abraham would from time to time possess scribes in ancient Egypt to transcribe his writings, ensuring their survival. So by his own hand, while not literally true, was at least spiritually true, and it fits nicely into the Conjuring universe. Or was it C? Look, he got that one wrong. So what? It's not important who wrote the book, but what's in it. Oh, it doesn't actually say what he says it was. Look over there. So,
the jingly keys option.
Right. So A, by his own hand, means that he was the author, if not the actual writer. Papyruses are delicate, so he possessed scribes. Or C, what are you looking at over here?
And when you say possessed, I just want to clarify. You mean he, as a spirit, like jumped into their bodies and wrote it?
Rather than purchase them, which is also an option. In the
You're already putting more thought into this than they have.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. So Nick, it's on you. What's your answer?
I'm going to go with A on this one.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh,
there
there
the
he
correct
goes.
answer. Way
there
to go,
he
Nick.
Goes. Nick,
Congratulations.
That's great. Congratulations.
That's right. So Nick, the Book of Abraham was never meant to be a holographic work. Holographic, by the way, is one of those $10 words that Mormon apologists employ to make their argument smarter than they are. It means a document that is specifically and literally written by its author. This is their argument, again, even though it's an exact contradiction to what Joseph Smith said. So congratulations, you won.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
done.
So send me an email, Nick, to how to Heretic, and if you want to go to our Heretic boutique on our website, you can go there and pick a T-shirt and send me a link to it, and we will get that sent out to you.
Sure. Thanks, uncles.
Congratulations.
All right. Mute yourself back up, and Uncle Mark, why don't you pick our next? Everybody, wave your hands furiously if you want to be chosen. And Uncle Mark,
this is a lot of pressure.
The chooser.
So, all right, look, the Shul clan looks really, really excited about this.
Oh my!
Yeah, and they have an automatic phone a friend since there's 3 of them there. So
right,
there's 3 I can see. Maybe there's more.
Shul clan, unmute and talk to us. What is up? How are you?
Come on.
So we are fantastic. We're here in Fort Worth, and it's better out here than it is out there. So yeah.
Oh, okay. What is a Fort Worth?
What is it worth? Yeah.
Right, Dallas.
Oh, what a great joke that was. Uncle Doug, why don't you take over?
All right, Shul family. Good to see you, and thanks for playing. Again, to Uncle Mark's question, are you guys ex-Mormons, affiliated with Mormonism?
We are all ex-Mormon. I served a
Mormon.
mission almost 10 years ago in Tacoma, Washington.
Oof.
What was it like learning the language?
It was very easy. They speak almost English there. And it's,
Okay, nice.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome. So moving on to the next question, let's talk about Kolob. Can we talk about Kolob?
Yay, Kolob talk.
Hey.
Let's hi there, shall we?
But before we talk about Kolob, can we just give an honorable mention to my other favorite star in the book of Abraham?
Yes. What was it? Cocoa Beam?
Cocoa Beam.
Cocoa Beam, that's right. It's a creative firmament that the Mormons have.
You can tell when an author's just running out of names, just running on fumes, right?
His creativity was a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. In chapter 3, Abraham must be somewhere outside of Barstow because the drugs are beginning to take hold. Abraham is being whisked around the cosmos in the most confusing exposition scene this side of the second Matrix film. Starting in verse 2, we get the following. Quote, "And I saw the stars, they were very great, and that one of them was nearest unto the throne of God, and there were many great ones which are near unto it. The Lord said unto me, These are the governing ones. The name of the great one is Kolob, because it is near unto me. For I am the Lord thy God. I have set this one to govern all those which belong to the same order as that upon which thou standest. Kolob was after the manner of the Lord, according to its times and seasons, the revelations thereof. That one revolution was a day unto the Lord. After this manner of reckoning, it's been 1,000 years according to the time appointed unto that whereon thou standest. This is the reckoning of the Lord's time according to the reckoning of Kolob."
Falling asleep just listening to that.
That all sounded like Tacoma speak to me. I don't
Exactly.
understand a word of it.
Yeah.
They should teach that in creative writing classes as narrative clarity. Getting from A to B efficiently.
So there's a lot to pick apart here, but let's just stay with the rotations of Kolob. First and most obviously, how does the rotation of the nearest star have any bearing on how you would mark time? One would not mark time by the rotation of would not one mark time by the rotation upon which one stands. And by definition, stars don't have seasons as we know them. Terrestrial seasons are based on the axial shift and orbital rate of an orbiting planet. It's the same way that if I go out and stay in the sun too long, I get sunburned. The sun does not get Doug-burned.
You don't know. You could be really hurting the sun right now.
Could I just tell you, my ginger little brother, if he looks at a artist's rendering, a courtroom artist's rendering of the sun, he will get burned.
Speaking of which,
yeah,
Igor, you got to change your background before I'll have to put some sunscreen on. So, okay. Leaving aside, of course, that Joseph's description of how Kolob governs the other great stars in the region and how it manages to govern time in our own distant planet does not make any sense at all in either Newtonian physics, which Joseph could have known about, or Einsteinian physics, which he could not have known about unless he was, of course, a prophet of God.
Inspired by Jesus.
How does the renowned Book of Abraham apologist John Gee explain these contradictions in his brain cell killing article, The Larger Issue? By the way, if you are tempted to read this article, I would recommend instead that you buy 2 liters of Coca-Cola to use in a sinus flush. It's equally painful and useless, but at least then you'd have some Coca-Cola. So, how does John Gee explain away the astrophysics of the Book of Abraham? Is it A, actually, the fact that God describes Kolob as the Great One obviously means it was the most massive. As such, a planet orbiting close to such a massive star would experience time more slowly than we would orbiting our more modest star. We are experiencing time 1,000 times faster than God on his throne near Kolob. This description predates Einstein's theory of relativity by 75 years. Checkmate, atheists. Is it B? As everyone knows, the Kessel Run was a hyperspace route within the Acades maelstrom used by smugglers and unscrupulous freighter captains to move spice from the spice mines of Kessel at the behest of the Pike Syndicate, who relied upon the foolhardy Kessel runs to deliver their illicit substance to their customers. Han Solo claimed to have made that run in a record-breaking 12 parsecs. A parsec, it turns out, is a measure of distance, not time, making Solo's claim nonsensical, but I don't hear any of you bitching about that. Look over there. Or is it C? Of course this doesn't make sense to us. It was not meant for us. Abraham was describing God's own cosmology in a way that those heathen Egyptians would understand. Unless you are an ancient Egyptian or a thoroughly disgraced Egyptologist, this explanation would not make sense to you. So, is it A, an early description of relativity? Is it B, the Kessel Run? Or is it C, we're not supposed to understand it anyway?
Well, the spice must flow is an eternal doctrine laid down for the foundation of the world. But I don't know. I'm thinking A. What do you guys think?
Don't look at me. I'm exempt from answering. It's my birthday.
Oh,
Happy birthday. Oh, I see now behind you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So
all right.
Is your guess A?
Let's say A. Let's say it's A.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, for your birthday, I'm going to grant you another guess.
All right.
a 50-50 chance now.
And we're going to give you a second hint, which is it's obviously not B. So what one is it?
It's definitely C.
Ah, ding, ding, ding. All
Mazel
right.
tov, mazel tov.
Or is it
Well
C or
done.
C?
You guys nailed that in just 2 tries. So that's pretty amazing.
So, congratulations. Guy goes to great length to explain how Joseph's description could have made sense to a 20th century BCE Egyptian by tossing out enough word salad to feed a vegan army. No explanation is given as to why this cosmology would appear in a 1st century funerary text or a 19th century translation. So, shut up. So, congratulations, guys.
All
Yeah.
right.
Remember
Mark,
to
tell
send-
them what they've won.
You've won T-shirts, and since there was one guess each, why don't you each pick a link from our Heretic and send it to me with your home address so I can get it mailed to you in deep in the heart of Texas.
We're getting generous up in here.
Yeah.
It's T-shirt of Palooza.
Well,
right
we're all
now.
going to be dead in 6 months, so let's
That's true.
give away T-shirts. I don't.
All
give a
right,
shit.
Shoal Clan. Thanks so much. Mute
Congratulations.
yourselves, and we will move along to our one more person. So let's see those hands if you want to participate. Get crazy and we'll.
Who's
we'll
picking
go
this
with-
one? Or you're picking this one down.
I'm gonna pick Beth and Nola. We gotta get a New Orleanian in here.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How
Hey,
are
Beth.
you doing?
Doing good.
Oh, it's
How
good.
are things down there?
Hot. It's always hot and humid.
Is this big easy blasphemy?
It is.
Oh hell
I
yeah!
love my Mardi Gras. I want to get my Mardi Gras costume
It's a hell of a parade. Don't miss it.
this year.
All
Yeah.
right. Well,
Okay.
thanks for coming on, and Uncle Doug. Let's stump her this time. Let's make
All
sure
right.
she's the one that doesn't get a T-shirt.
I have no knowledge of Mormonism. I was raised as like a bland mainstream Protestant thing that I
Oh.
never really got into.
Lucky you.
I think you'll be able to figure this one out.
Totally
Mor-
didn't stick at all.
Mormonism is pretty bland, so who knows? I mean, it's got some weirdness to it, but the people are bland, so maybe you'll be able to intuit it.
Yeah, we're
All
a
right.
weird combination of the Osmonds and space travel. I still can't make sense of it.
Well, I grew up in Indiana, so bland, white,
Great,
I'm no stranger to it.
perfect.
All right. Well, Beth, call upon your ancestors and let's see if we can get this last one. So, lastly, and by no means leastly, is that a word? All right.
Sure.
There is the glaring issue of the actual symbols on the papyruses that Joseph Smith translated. We now have a perfect understanding of what those symbols actually mean, and spoiler alert, they have absolutely nothing to do with what Joseph claimed they meant. He got everything wrong, including an explanation of all the boners. So many boners. So, far from the fever dream of a probably mythical filicidal psychopath, these are instructions to a dude named Hor on how to take his first breaths in the next life.
Whore?
Hor, H-O-R. Easy there. Easy, Beth. It's a family show.
Calm it down.
Yeah, we're not shaming anybody. Yeah, but I imagine growing up with the first name of Hor was probably an issue in high school. That's what made him so tough.
An obvious miss this large is the equivalent of claiming that the eye chart at your local ophthalmologist is actually the story of a man named Jed who barely kept his family fed. So how do Mormon apologists explain this chasm-wide discrepancy between what is actually written down and what Joseph claimed was written down? Is it A, nearly all symbols have more than one meaning? The symbol number 2 and facsimile number 3 can either mean King Pharaoh, as claimed by Joseph, Isis the Great, as claimed by all Egyptologists, or a style of pedestrian travel, as claimed by the Bengals in their 1986 global mega hit, Walk Like an Egyptian. Is it B, the papyruses that Joseph purchased were never meant to be the literal source of his translation, as he, his contemporaries, and countless subsequent Mormon leaders have claimed, but as more of an inspiration for the Book of Abraham? Trying to compare the two is a waste of time, you stupid scholars. Or is it C, Jesus Christ, this is embarrassing. I have ruined my career and reputation trying to explain away this garbage, and all I get is laughed at by real Egyptian scholars. Can we please just get rid of this stupid book once and for all, and let me focus on how a group of pre-Columbian Caucasian Jews hid all their evidence of their elephants?
You know how mean Egyptologists can be. They are so,
It's a cruel bunch.
it is. It's very mean girl.
So Beth,
Bunch of Heathers.
is it A, symbols can have more than one meaning, even meanings that no one else has ever seen? Is it B, the papyruses were just mere inspiration? Or is it C, oh my God, this is embarrassing?
I would love it to be C, but let's go with B.
B it is.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh, man. We
That's
didn't
right.
save a T-shirt at all on that one. All right.
Like all religious apologetics, when they're finally cornered, it's just magic. So congratulations, Beth. You are
there
correct.
you go. Beth, next time you go to a Mardi Gras parade and you want to show your boobs, make sure you lift that How to Heretic shirt that we give you.
Yeah, we don't do that. That's actually the tourists and all down
okay.
Bourbon Street, and we don't go anywhere near their Mardi Gras. Our Mardi Gras is a much more interesting and fun thing.
Where are you in New Orleans?
I live uptown New Orleans, kind of like near Tulane University and Loyola University. So up St.
nice.
Charles Avenue.
My sister went to Loyola, New Orleans.
I can hear the streetcar from my house.
There you
nice.
go. Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, again, just send an email to Uncle Mark, and he'll hook you up with the shirt of your choosing. And we'll but it's on you to send that email.
Of
We
course.
are not industrious.
Got it.
All right, Uncle Doug, take us home. What have we learned from all of this?
oh my God, do I have to have a lesson for this?
We should at least
guess-
have a closing prayer.
The lesson
that's
is
true.
when you see something like that in your holy book, question your holy book. So,
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well,
All
thanks
right.
everybody for all of your participation. We sure do appreciate it.
Yeah, congrats to
move
all the
on?
winners. Nobody,
Yeah.
there's no losers at the How to Heretic other than these three guys. So
Other than the uncles. So
All
let's move on.
let's
moving
move
on. Well, uncles,
Hey, yeah, hi.
it has been
We're still doing this.
still doing this, and
People are
as
still watching. It's all very nerve-wracking.
I feel like I'm being watched. This is
You
very-
are. You are,
strange.
and we can watch them back though. That's
There's a
nice
there's
thing.
a Rasputin looking character with fire behind him that making me very nervous.
That's Uncle Doug.
Well, dear uncles, it's been unbelievably 3 years since the two of you began this podcast, and I joined sometime later than that. But that's 1 year for each uncle.
Yeah.
So a
That's
lot's happened.
insane.
It is
Do you-
insane.
Does it feel like it's been 3 years? I mean, the last 6 months feel like they've been 3 years.
Yeah.
But does it feel like, to me, it feel like if you told me, I have no sense of time. I'm terrible with time anyway. But if you told me that like it had been a year and a half, I would totally believe you.
Yeah. In the podcast, in the way I think about the podcast, it seems like it's just been yesterday. But
Yeah.
when I try and think back that we began this in September, October of 2017, that seems like 1,000 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
how naive were we back then?
Well,
Just
well,
idiots.
our friend Tori Glass was saying she texted me and said she was listening to an episode from 2018. She's like, "Oh my God, life was so good."
We were
so
recording
dumb.
in the same room together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, I'm the only one in our recording studio, which feels sad and lonely. And
We were open mouth kissing each other when we met up
Oh.
every week.
oh yeah, it was,
Yeah.
which was weird because you two are brothers, and I felt left out a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You've had this connection for a long time.
I mean, no tongue. It was
Yeah.
not weird.
And Uncle Dan, you were always the mayonnaise in the white bread sandwich, so it wasn't totally weird.
yeah.
So,
But
I
if
thought
you think about it, Doug, it feels like a brief time, but we have done, I looked it up, we've done 471 segments or interviews
Oh.
in what feels like, I know it feels like, oh, it just barely happened. It's like, no.
Yeah.
and as
I had to read a lot of terrible articles to get there.
as we
Yeah.
prepare each week to do our segments, it seems like we've only just scratched the surface. Because
Well-
our spreadsheet that we kind of use as a guide to kind of track segments we've done or segments we might end up doing only gets longer. It just does not get shorter.
Well, and what's funny is, Uncle Mark, you remember when we first were planning this, and we were ready. We put some months in before we ever did this because we wanted to be sure that this was a thing that we'd be able to do, and that it
A
would
very,
be
very unusual
sustainable.
thing for podcasters to do is plan ahead, but we
Right,
actually
yeah,
did that,
and
yeah.
and we literally like compiled a whole bunch of different possible topics, just so that we knew we could make it through,
a
year's worth of stuff. So we wanted to make sure we had enough stuff for segments going out at least a year, because we were genuinely, there was like some concern that we might run out
of religious hooey to investigate. Yeah. We're not there yet. So I keep the spreadsheet pretty updated. And if you just look at, the boxes that are filled in versus the ones that aren't, we're not a third of the way through. And I find whenever I'm doing research into, one of these cults or whatever, and our friend Ivana sent me down this whole new rabbit hole about this kind of Mormon semi-fiction that I'm going to be doing soon, you end up with like 6 more topics.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Every rabbit hole you go down has offshoots that you're just, whoa, I need to come back to that. And
yeah, I mean, we get suggestions for segments from listeners, and please keep them coming.
Yeah, we love it.
I mean, Devin just sent me one the other day, and if the current administration, let's say, isn't if there's one place in the world that it's making life better, it's for atheist podcasters. Because every day there's some new kook. A week ago I didn't know the name of this new Supreme Court nominee.
Yeah, I mean, that's a silver lining to consider as we're all lining up to go inside the barbed wire at the camp.
Yes, I guess. Every silver lining has a mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to, since we're reflecting, I mean, this segment is about us sort of reflecting on the last 3 years. I wanted to throw it out there, like, one of the things that we set out to do was to help people sort of challenge some of their preconceived ideas, some of their religious upbringing and whatever. And what I've found is I have challenged a lot of I've discovered, I've been out of religion for 25 years or something, 25 years maybe. And I keep finding my own preconceived notions that need to be challenged. And I think that that's kind of fun. Not just Bible stories that were not what I thought they were, which is one of my favorite things now, is to just find Bible stories and then think that I know what they are, and then just actually read the text and go, oh, fuck, that doesn't say anything like what I thought it said.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and like most of us, we haven't read those stories, really read them since we were told them as children.
Right. And when you read it and you're looking through the lens of, I have to believe this. I already believe this, even though I've never read it before. Now I'm reading it, but I still already have to believe it. Yeah. You read it totally differently. So going back and reading it through the lens of like, this is probably bullshit. Let's see what it just says.
Yeah. Like when I did, Abraham and Isaac a week ago or whatever it was. And it's just like, there's nothing there except a guy heard a voice and went to kill his kid, and the voice said don't, and he didn't. That's the whole story. And other than he abandoned his slave that bore his child and his child in the desert before that.
Yeah.
Yay, Abraham. Like, great stuff. But
good stuff.
Going back to what you said about, your own kind of preconceptions and bullshit being challenged, I for sure have had that. Like, I think I started on this journey a much more strident atheist than I am now.
Oh, interesting.
I think that religion, I'm again it.
Yeah.
But I've definitely discovered a lot more nuance in for instance, when we were talking about the public universal friend, who was kind of this non-binary character before, in revolutionary America, before that was even a thing, understood, sometimes religion was the only venue certain people had to express themselves or their opinions or their, exercise their freedom in some way, because it was the pulpit was the only public place in a weird way. Right.
Right.
So I think that a lot of brilliant people that and we've talked about a lot of them, that had they not been shackled to their time, they would have done something else much more interesting. But it's the tools they had at their disposal is one lesson I've taken from it,
Yeah. And shifting gears a wee bit, I've always said, and I said this on the show, I don't remember when, but that there is a scripture in the Bible that I find quite hopeful. And it's Proverbs 14:1,
I thought it was the one that said the end.
It's about as hopeful as it gets.
Yeah.
Proverbs 14:1 says, "The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, they that have done abominable works, there is none that doeth good." And what I take to be so great about that is somewhere when that book was written, 1400 or so years BCE, there were people, even that didn't have the scientific evidence that we have and everything that we know, that still listened to their priests and leaned over to the guy next to him and said, "You don't think this is bullshit, right?" Atheists go back. We have a proud history.
Yeah.
It goes back. And even though religions have spent the last several thousand years trying to repress it or literally burn it at the stake, that skepticism has survived and thrived. And you know, one of the biggest complaints may not be the wrong word. One of the biggest hardships of people who've recently left religion is that religion, one of the few positive things it provided to them was a sense of community. And that when you become an atheist, you abandon religion, it's oftentimes very lonely, and you kind of struggle to find that sense of community. And, you know, for the past 3 years, and we're not the first and we're not the only, and we'll never be the last to do this, but here we are building community, right? This is the community that we, you know, we all left behind in church, but doesn't belong to religion. It is what we make of it. So I find
someday
that to be
we'll
quite
meet
heartening.
some of you.
That's right. Someday we'll do a live show, live show.
I'm going to go do it in Moscow because it looks toasty there.
Yeah. Nice and warm.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the community thing, you know, when we had Marlene Winnell on the show a while ago, and she made that really interesting observation about, you know, I read everybody's emails and honestly, part of what has been a huge part of that, I'm not going to say the word moderating, but kind of a deeper understanding of the journey for me has been reading people's emails and seeing where they are in their space and in their journey. And you know, we don't require everybody to be as dyed in the wool as we are. And that's also not very common in a lot of atheist podcasting. It's cool. Like, if we've said this before on the show, if you're leaving a really hateful space where, you know, Jesus was part of it to go to a less hateful space with Jesus as part of it, good for you. Yeah. Like so I think that's kind of the nuance I was talking about earlier. But, you know, also when Marlene Winnell was on the show and we talked about how there was a loss of community, she's like, well, is it realistic to expect that there's going to be the same kind of community when you leave that? Right? Other parts of life aren't necessarily cult-like.
Right.
So that intense focus on the community maybe doesn't necessarily exist, but it does in things like, you know, movie fandom, sports teams. It's just, I don't know. I think there are unrealistic expectations sometimes that you're just going to have a one-to-one replacement of those people that were ostensibly there for you.
Considering most of the people who were at my church, I don't need a one-to-one replacement. I can let most of them go completely.
Yeah.
So
it's
I don't
funny
need a congregation of hundreds to fill the gap.
We were talking about this earlier about, I think the three of us were talking about ice cream socials.
Yeah.
And it's a weird Mormon tradition that's now gone. It's not exclusive to Mormons, but Mormons did it, and I think they probably perfected it.
Does anybody remember ice cream? Wave if you remember ice cream socials. Yeah. They were huge. And then they got rid of them.
And what they were was just what it sounds like, obviously, but Mormons like them some ice cream. And I defy any other demographic on the planet to take our trophy. But, you know, once a year, I think it was like in August, or it was just kind of the waning days of summer, everybody would bring their homemade ice cream to the church backyard. We'd set up big tables covered in dry ice. And as a kid, you would just
eat all you want. Just all you want. Yeah.
And it was lovely. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it might have been my only fond memory of Mormonism. So, and then Boyd K. Packer came along and saw how much fun people were having, and he canceled it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why that can't obviously be recreated in any other community in the world. And other than that, I don't miss a goddamn thing about being a Mormon. Wow. I just don't at all. And I think
oh, go ahead.
Please.
Well, I was gonna take it in a slightly different direction, which is that, like, yeah, we grew up Mormon, and the shit, it sucked and whatever. And one of the things that I have learned, because I was talking about my own preconceived notions going into this show. One of the things that I have learned, and some of it's the fact that, like, our country's falling apart, and we elected the guy that we elected to be our president, and it made me rethink everything about everything. But also just, as we explore humanity, and we explore that, religions that are supposed to be the peaceful ones end up not being any more peaceful than anybody else. Like, once they get into power, they do the same thing that all the religions do when they get into power. And, I used to have this idea that human beings are sort of inherently good, and some people turn on that goodness, and now I don't believe that anymore. I believe in, like, not being humans not being good or bad, but just complicated monkeys that, like, there's a lot of shit going on, and if things work out well for you, then you'll have a good grounding to be a good person. When things goes pear-shaped for you, you might be a dick. And it, like, I think this show has helped me see that, and human beings aren't even inherently logical creatures. It's so easy for humans to talk
misled.
Ourselves into some ridiculous belief, and we can believe it so easily. And once we're in, we can believe anything. We can believe that a guy whose head came off picked it up and walked with it for 5 miles. Humans, like, that are alive right now kind of quasi believe that shit.
Yeah. And I think, building on what you're saying, Dan, what I've really learned is to really look at even some of the more loony kind of religious people, really to look at them as victims.
Yeah.
Right. That, it's easy to see these kooks as bad guys, but, and some of them are true villains. I'm not saying that's not true. There are terrible fucking people who are perpetuating this garbage consciously. But then there's just kind of the rank and file, American evangelicals, or the rank and file, even cult members, and they're victims. I've been watching the Vow. Have anybody, you guys been watching The Vow on HBO?
Good.
I think
it's so good.
We
scooped them. We talked about Nexium before
we beat HBO to the punch, and
right.
I think the money proves that.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But that is not a cult made up of morons.
No.
That's not a cult made up of uneducated people. They are, except the guy who's the protagonist in the story is also the director of What the Bleep Do We Know, which is one of the most garbage movies ever made about woo and all that shit.
It's got Ramtha in it. It's got everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of the thing, right? He's not an idiot. He's a smart enough guy. He just happens to be susceptible to woo. And guess what? So many very smart people are susceptible to such stupid beliefs. And that's kind of the point of the show. It's just that we want to inoculate ourselves a little bit against the world's dumbest beliefs.
Well, if you believe in vaccines, which is
well, and there's
each their own.
Yeah, sure. I didn't start thinking about religion or atheism at the beginning of the show. I mean, we had long since found our way to where we kind of are now, and talked about it ad nauseum together. But each week I'm forced by having to come up with some kind of content to carry the two of you. I have to look into, various religions and cults.
We brought you into the show. We can take you out.
But here's the thing.
The trial period isn't over, Doug. I don't know if you know that.
I try very hard never to be susceptible to stuff, but as I've read about these cults and these religions and these movements and these stories, I've had my mind expanded, and I've learned new stuff, and I've seen connections I didn't know about before. But there has never been a moment where researching everything from the Celestine prophecy to karma to,
fortune cookies is one of my favorite ones you did.
Fortune cookies.
I loved the fortune cookie one.
I've never had a moment where I've gone, you know what? There's something here. Not once. And I think that speaks to the fact that once you kind of break with the cult, whatever that cult is, you are somewhat inoculated. You're never fully immune. None of us are, but you're certainly inoculated to the dumbest stuff.
I think once you see behind that curtain, it's so hard to go back out into the theater, right?
A friend of mine who's Mormon, not long after I left, asked me what it would take for me to come back to the church. And, I didn't mean this to be a shitty thing to say, but I said it's some kind of brain trauma. And I don't mean, all I mean is that I would have to somehow not know all of the things that I now know.
Yeah.
Right. And I would have to hit my head very hard and in the exact right place, forget about these things, because otherwise I know them now and I cannot unknow them. And once you
can't unring a bell.
Oh my God. If you get amnesia and go back to being the insufferable fucking Mormon you used to be, I will kill you myself. And I do that out of love.
That's in my living will. in there, and along with the curved dagger I want you to use.
Right.
Shing.
Yeah.
So here we are, champions against all the fun, magical thinking of the world, working to slay those dragons out there. I don't know. It's been a great 3 years. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's been a great 3 years, and we'll see if we can get to 4.
Well, and not to be too sappy, but it's also been a hellacious 3 years.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like, just in our outward, the worlds of politics and public health and climate,
human dignity,
human dignity and international relations and world peace. And it's this, for me, I can only speak for myself, but this has been really something for me to cling to, as just, especially during quarantine. It's how I knew that the week had passed. It was time to do another podcast. And it made me very happy.
Shit. Like I haven't worked in, I haven't worked in 7 months. And so to have, like, other than yelling at my husband at, all night when I get my drink on, this has kind of been amazing. And it's, also it's been so great to have correspondence. It's been so great to kind of, again, get your stories from all over the world and from so many different experiences, and all the crazy stuff I learn just from reading emails. Like, it's one thing to do the research for a segment, but to hear people coming out of every kind of different religious experience, and I'm like, fuck, I thought I had it bad. So thanks for having worse experiences than me, I guess, everybody.
Yeah, your horrible lives make us feel better, and that's what's important.
Schadenfreude is the fuel of this here podcast.
It's the only thing I feel anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys, we love you so much. Thanks for hanging with us for this long. Here's to a bunch more time. Should we move on?
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Well, fellas,
hello.
We even when we do a live show, we got to take care of some business. We got to talk to the people who are the best of our listeners. You guys watching from your own homes, you're the best also. But
yes.
What I'm talking about is the people who give us money. And we adore them. Oh, how wonderful they are. So we owe some thanks.
Since it's a video, Doug, do you want to literally shake your moneymaker for people in this rather than just doing it audio-wise every week?
Yes,
don't.
I'm about to do this. Ready?
Doug's.
Oh, yeah.
Censored.
Doug's moneymaker has not made money for a very long time.
How is that?
The motion picture ratings board cut that out for us. So.
Yeah, exactly. The MPAA. Well, we have some people that we actually want to thank, and
I'm going back.
Oh, do we have? Is somebody unmuted? Can everybody please make sure that you're muted?
I think we're reading you, Grandpa Jerry. There we go.
So everybody mute up and okay.
Oh, you have to be a patron. Sorry, you have to pay now.
Yeah, exactly. Now you owe us.
Yeah.
Well, friends. So Oh, I'm going to start that again. Look, we're taking another run at it. That's the magic of the show.
Live radio.
Live radio. Oh, what was that ding?
I did that.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not actually looking at the Zoom right now. All right.
I have a bell I forgot to use during the game, so I just used
great.
it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's professional radio, people.
Ta-da. It's not even radio, you guys.
What?
All right. So we owe some people some thanks, and so I will just dive in with that. Thanks to Joshua, to Erica, and then Uncle Doug. I'm going to start you off. We're going to launch with a we need to give a saint to Supreme Hentai Sensei.
Supreme Hentai Sensei?
That's correct.
Oh, right on. All right. Supreme Hentai Sensei, your patron saint is Saint Melodius Bolonius of the Petty of Sudden Valley, for any
Arrested Development.
thank you,
people out
Arrested
there.
Development fans out there.
Okay.
She's the patron saint of Zamboni drivers killed in the line of duty, disgruntled trapeze artists, and the first 600 decimal places of pi.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to get after the first 600. It gets ugly. Anyway,
Nobody
so.
wants to be around for 601.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a great saint there. And Uncle Mark, I think I need a saint from you too.
Oh, wow. What's this for?
For P Mike.
P Mike?
P Mike.
P Mike.
Yeah,
P Mike?
that's what I said.
P Mike. Okay. Just
Stop
give
repeating the name and just give him a saint, will you?
I
Jesus.
just get the fuck out of my flow here, all right, for a second.
P money was taken.
I think that P Mike's saint is probably Saint Malabulicious of Tahunga, which is a beautiful kind of North Hollywood adjacent area.
Okay, great.
They make a lot of porn there. I would say that person is the patron saint of any egg-based sauces that have a citrus component.
Sure.
And spontaneous ejaculation.
Okay, so culinary in all the ways. then.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great.
It's a creamy saint.
Very
Family
great.
show.
creamy.
Is
and
it though?
delicious. Is it though? That's a good point.
I see a family right now. And I
Okay,
see the
well,
father desperately trying to mute it.
There's
yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
conversations you can have after the show today. So
Yeah.
you're welcome.
We try to open up the dialogue
Yeah.
in the family unit.
I see Uncle Simon and Auntie Amber desperately trying to turn the volume down on their computer.
Yeah, good luck with that. Well, to all of our patrons, thank you so much. And to anyone who wishes to become a patron, and why wouldn't you? You can go to howtoheretic.com, click on the support us thing. It gets you through. You decide how much you want to give us. As much as you can, obviously, is better. And then you get to be one of the stars in our constellation.
We're
You
in
get-
the afterscape. Money is meaningless. Just keep putting it in. See what happens.
What good is it going to do you? It's going to be meaningless so soon. So give it to us. We'll make sure to be good stewards of it by doing whatever the fuck we want. And
Yes.
and that's good. Otherwise, what else, Mark, could they
You
do?
can
to
paint
support
the
us?
sky, the very sky, with stars.
What?
Yes, 5 at a
How?
time. And like
5
the money,
only?
you can just keep putting them in. So go anywhere you can give us 5 stars. Please do it. Apparently, there is a thing called an algorithm, and that helps. He helps. I think it's a guy. Al helps people find the show, and we can get more heretics and lead the revolution. So please
Yes,
do that.
indeed. Let's move along.
Let's
Let's
move
go.
on. Well, fellas,
Hey,
Hello.
you know, as we mentioned in the table of contents, we're kind of doing it's kind of a live-ish situation here.
we've gone crazy. It is madness.
We have a
There are-
studio audience,
We have a live on tape. is
like
what we
Charles
are.
in charge. We have a studio audience.
That's right. Cheers. Oh, so one of the things that's neat about that is that if we allow them, these people can interact with us, as we learned on the first segment of the show. So,
in a germ-free environment.
it
It is an age of wonders.
I mean, it may not be. We're not passing any germs back and forth. They may be. Like my environment currently is germ infested.
We are alone in our germy garbage houses together.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody's keeping their germs to themselves, and that's a nice thing.
I think Teru looks like she has a knitted germ.
Okay, that's nice. So
that Finnish science has said that is what COVID looks like. Yeah, very good.
So one of the things that we wanted to do, because this is a very special episode of Blossom, is to let you guys ask us any questions you might have. I don't know if you have any questions. If you don't, this will be a very short segment indeed. But yeah, we could wave your hands if you've got something you want to ask us. And I'm going to start us off with Brian and Annette. Why don't you guys unmute and ask us what you want to ask us?
Guys, I hope it's not marriage advice.
Yeah, well, it can be. It won't be good.
Our question was, how much time do you actually spend preparing for the podcast every week?
I think it varies by uncle.
Yeah. So some of us are smarter than others, and we don't have to work as hard.
I'm going to say I'm probably in the middle. Speaking for myself, I can easily do. My average is probably 8 hours, but for crazy things that are really rabbit hole intensive, I have been known to spend like 20 hours, which is on top of the full-time job I used to have, which was kind of nightmarish. But yeah. And then Doug, I think
well, it's somewhat segment specific. So if it's a deep dive into something like the Mountain Meadows Massacre or the Book of Abraham, I'll spend quite a bit of time on that, and usually more than a week in preparation. I'll be working up to those segments for a little while, because believe it or not, I do want it to be entertaining. And so there's some segments that kind of like Nexium is a good example of a segment that did not take that long to write, because there is just not that much there.
Yeah, sometimes you find there's not a lot of source material for a topic, like something really obscure you might only be able to find 4 little tidbits on. So,
but there are subjects where it's just an unending series of rabbit holes.
Yeah,
where you've just got to stop at some point to be like, I gotta find a way out of this now. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
I got to go to bed. Yeah,
the rabbit holes are an interesting thing, because there have been, and you guys tell me if this has happened to you. There have been a number of times when I've been researching one thing, hit a rabbit hole, and gone, "Oh shit, that's way more interesting."
Yeah, totally.
And then
discard the topic,
shift gears entirely, and go to the rabbit hole instead of what I thought was going to be the original topic.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of world building we've done in 3 years where we don't have to spend as much time on some of the fundamentals, because we've either so ingrained it in our own brains, or we've covered it ad nauseum on the show that we can kind of extend out into more, so to speak, advanced topics without so much context and so much background.
Yeah, no illusions told me that he considers himself the world's most reluctant religious scholar, and I definitely get it now.
Yeah. And in case anybody missed it, I'm the one that Mark was insinuating doesn't put any work into.
It could have been one of the other uncles too. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and I'm just, because we're confessing, I write down pretty much everything I say, and I do that more for as a crutch, because I'm not as spontaneous or single-minded, interesting or funny as the other uncles. So I've got to have that crutch there, because if I get knocked off my game by the asinine comments of Mark or Dan, I've got to get things back on track. And I find if I don't have it written down, I'll never get there. Well, and if I have,
are you saying that you're answering this question in anticipation of our question?
Exactly. It's all right here. I'll share my screen. I already knew what you were going to ask me.
That's right.
All right. Let's have somebody else.
Thank you for that question. Uncle Mark, you want to choose our next
person? Sure. Anybody have anything they want to say, or something, an insult for Doug? Robert Jean de Vries, which is solid Dutch name, I think.
Robert Jan de Vries, yeah, that would be what it would be.
Yeah. How are you? Where are you?
I'm in New York.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Yeah, you probably remember that from a certain email. My question is actually, it's actually kind of a group question. I was born and raised atheist. Well, I wouldn't say atheist, it's like non-religious, right?
We were all born atheist, but
Yeah,
it's the raising that's the problem.
Yeah. And so I'm finding myself, like, my wife is Indian, and therefore there's a lot of Hinduism there. But then she was also born and raised in the Philippines, so there's like hardcore Catholicism there. And as somebody that just grew up with none of that, I'm learning I'm learning everything from the Bible, from you guys.
It's a dangerous game, my friend.
So my question is, like, how coming from the opposite side of things, how do you navigate that? Because it gets tricky, because I just kind of brush a lot of it off by default, which then gets me in trouble.
Right. So is she a practicing Hindu or a Catholic?
She's agnostic.
She's agnostic. So yeah, I really struggle with imagining myself in a mixed faith. Not that she's necessarily of a faith, but she has so much programming and experience from both of those pretty high demand situations, right? I guess the one upside is that Catholicism is also kind of polytheistic, so maybe it makes sense. Well, I don't know.
I'd say this, and we joke about this all the time, is that nobody reads the Bible like atheists. No one reads the Bible as carefully and thoroughly as atheists do.
Right.
And as a religious person, you're not really taught the Bible. You are given cherry-picked segments of the Bible out of context and sanitized in a way that has very little to do with the actual story or meaning. So, from your perspective, just picking up this book and starting to read it is as foreign a book to most religious people, as you can get. It is not the book they've actually grown up with, because no one sits down and goes to Genesis 1:1 and reads the book through Revelation. You
except us.
Except atheists, exactly. So
don't do it, John.
Don't.
It's just Robert. Don't do it. It's just like
getting it through us is about as hopefully painless a way as you can get Bible stories. So,
is she still kind of struggling with deconversion or deprogramming or anything like that? Or you're on mute, Rob. You're on mute. There you
go. No.
So it doesn't really cause a lot of friction necessarily in your marriage.
No, it's more the extension of that, how it relates to everyone else,
One of the things that I would say is that the approach that I now take with believers, because look, I'm not a missionary. I leave that to other people. It's not my job to convert people to my way of thinking. It does seem to be their job to convert me to their way of thinking, but I like to just approach with questions. All I do is ask questions. From a place of genuine curiosity. When I talk to somebody, when they want to talk about their beliefs, I will either say, "Look, I'm not interested in that conversation. Let's talk about something else." Or if I am interested, I'll actually just because I've approached the Bible in this different way. I think I really enjoy saying, how do you help me understand this thing? How do you approach this? And if nothing else, getting other people to think about their own belief systems can have effects down the road.
And so, something interesting, at least from my perspective, Robert, is that I was not the least bit interested in Mormonism or religion generally until I left it. Which is kind of a weird thing to say. But I became way more interested in it the more distance I had from it, because at least in my experience, it was less about the trauma at that point and more about wanting to understand what makes it tick. And so, then I end up with a podcast where I fucking bang my head against some weird book every week. So I don't know. I don't know how she's never going to get all that stuff out of her head. It's just, they're both kind of huge propositions.
You're never going to get it all in there. It's too late. You're too old.
Yeah, give up.
There's not enough time. Like you'll never be able to get that indoctrination into your head. So you've got to kind of meet somewhere in the middle, I suppose. But if we can help with that at all, we're happy to do it.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert. Uncle Doug, why don't you pick somebody else to ask a question? We got a bunch of waivers. We got people waving.
Okay.
Questions.
I see someone named Media on page 3 who is very, very, very interested in a question.
I said Uncle Doug choose, Uncle Mark. Calm
I'm his
down.
big brother.
Media, just because I don't want to deal with this later, why don't you go ahead and unmute?
Media, how are you?
Hi.
Hey, Media.
Can you hear me okay? Or is the mask in the way?
Great.
Where are you calling from? We're long time caller, first time, whatever. Hi.
I'm in Corpus right now. Corpus Christi.
Nice.
We moved here like a month ago.
The body of Christ. I love it.
Is that why you're wearing your mask inside at all times? Because you're in Florida?
No, I'm in Texas.
Doug, where is Corpus Christi, stupid?
Texas.
But my face is just...
Andrea, mute Mark.
Hurricane season is the best time to move to Corpus Christi, isn't it?
I mean, I found a job within a month, so.
Oh, there you go.
That's good.
And then lost the job, but
Well, that will happen. What's your question?
How'd you guys get started?
Ooh.
How'd we get started? Uncle Mark?
So Dan.
Like, were you all just drinking and thought it'd be funny, or?
That's how most podcasts get started, that's for sure.
It actually starts with Uncle Dan and his podcast.
Yeah.
His other podcast, Thank God I'm Atheist.
That's right.
Which I started listening to. So it's all my fault that this happened.
It's all really weird. So Doug started listening to TGIA. He's like, you got to listen to these guys. They're great. So I tuned in and we both loved the show. And then I was at dinner in town here one night and this guy runs up to me and says, "Hi, my name's Dan Beecher. I'm from TGIA." And I was like, how did you even know? It was so bizarre, right, Dan? I was like, how did you know who I am?
From my perspective, what had happened is, Uncle Mark, you had written an email to us.
Yeah.
And it was a long, very funny email that you had written. And Frank and I had talked about it, and I was like, who is this guy? And Frank knew who you were. You are a man about town here in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake famous.
You are.
I married well, let me say that.
More than that, your mustache at the time was Salt Lake famous, and that's what Frank said to me was, you know who he is? He's the guy with the big mustache, right? So when I saw you walk into that restaurant, I was like, hey, I know that guy. And Andrea knew who you were too. I think maybe she and Jesse knew each other or peripherally or something.
It was super weird. It was just like.
So I just walked up to you and I was like, hey, you sent me an email. And you were like, no, I don't know who you are. I don't think I did. And from there, we became friends. And then I thought you were funny and I needed a fill-in co-host for TGIA. And you came on and did that and were passable. So that was okay.
We did a bunch of those. Yeah, we did several of those. And then Doug sat in on a few.
Yeah. And then we just were talking about, I think at one point I just said, hey, should we do a different show? Should we do another show?
Yeah. And then the 2016 election happened and we were like, oh, fuck. Like, serious. We were like, we've got to do something. Like, what can we do to try to like, not only for, ourselves, but maybe for other people to push back this darkness a little bit.
Because you know what the world needs right now? Another podcast.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, well, so
featuring 3 white guys.
It doesn't get better than that.
And what's even funnier,
if you go back to the earliest shows, we did try. I really wanted to have a woman co-host, and we attempted that, and she didn't work out. She was fine, but she didn't work out, and then there was Doug just waiting in the wings. So. And he came.
The hunt's not over yet. So yeah, we decided to get into it. And what's funny too is we're not only 3 cis white men, we also are 3 ex-Mormons. And although we didn't know each other, we grew up 3 blocks apart, Dan?
Yeah, not too far. Not too far.
Which is so. Do with that what you will. So there you go. That's the humble
There
origins
you
of this
go.
stupid thing.
Yeah. Thanks so much, media, for your question. Who else has a question?
Doug, why don't you actually pick someone?
I think based on the measure of the mustache, we've got to go to Kellum and Jacob Tate Jones, sitting looks like on their porch. Hey guys.
Hello.
Yeah.
So to be here and to see all of your lovely.
Oh, I know who you are. I know you are my favorite pinnipedologist.
Yes.
Yes.
What now? How dare you call them that? These are good people.
Oh, look at that.
What's
seal?
I'm a paleontologist and I study the evolution of seals, sea lions, and walruses.
Oh, you don't believe in that evolution crap, do you?
Oh man, it has been such a journey. Yeah, it's delightful to have super fundamentalist parents and then tell them that you're studying deep time. So
nice. All right. Well, what's your question for us?
So this question is specifically for Uncle Mark and Uncle Dan or Uncle Doug. I am just fascinated by y'all's backstory of like having this
oh boy,
really conflict around like Uncle Mark becoming an atheist before Uncle Doug. So I am curious as to how all of that worked out. Like, so originally, like Uncle Doug was like, "Oh, Uncle Mark, please become a Mormon again." And how did Uncle Doug go through the transition from, very evangelizing Mormon to back on the same side as Uncle Mark?
Yeah, Uncle Mark, you won the battle. How'd that happen?
So I think it was last week's episode where Doug talked about his shelf breaking, if you've heard that, which is a pretty good primer to that whole period. But just for me, growing up Mormon, pardon me, as a young kid in the 70s and 80s when Mormonism was even public, far worse than it is now publicly. It was really cold and cruel. I mean, we did have the ice cream socials. That was and the road shows, which was like, we used to go put on plays, which they don't do anymore. Anyway, when my understanding of myself as a queer person, which was not a happy thing to kind of come to realize, began to dawn on me around probably 10, 11, 12, Mormonism was ferociously, still is, but it was ferociously homophobic. So it became pretty clear to me there was never going to be a place at the table for me, but I didn't have any options. Like I didn't know any non-Mormons essentially. The only gay people in media were clowns, were minstrels, right? Were kind of Charles Nelson Riley and Paul Lynde and those kind of people who, debase themselves for laughs.
They weren't even out as gay. They were just
flaming,
they were in. But they were playing, a straight guy on TV or whatever.
Yeah, the safest place for a gay man in the 1970s in America was in front of a television camera, which is such a bizarre kind of truth. But anyway, so I kind of just had to play it straight, essentially stay in the closet, keep my head down. But that began to make me see Mormonism from the outside, right? Because I wasn't really an insider. I was always going to be outside of it. So I very early on was just like, either I'm crazy or they're crazy, and I don't know which it is yet.
It can be both. This doesn't have to be an either or.
But then Doug's 6 years younger than me, so that's a pretty big spread. So I was already like well into my teenage fuck this shit years when Doug was trying very, very hard as the fourth child in our family to please our unpleasable garbage parents, and. So yeah, then it's Doug's story.
Well, and I did talk about this quite a bit before, but I think it really comes down to the fact that religious claims are fundamentally irrational, and it doesn't matter the religion, it doesn't matter the cult. There may be some rationality somewhere, or there may be some nugget of, based on a true story somewhere. But by and large, they are irrational beliefs, and we are pattern-seeking animals. We're trying to make sense of our world in a way that is useful and repeatable, and it helps us. And you push those two things together for long enough, and you will either one of the other will break, or both of them will break. And I think, if your rational mind breaks first, you become a lifelong religious person. If your religious side breaks first, you can find your way out. Like rationality overwhelms those silly things. And if both sides break first, you become Uncle Mark. So I applied reason and rationality to these things that I truly believed in, always believing that there was some way for it to work. There had to be, that this kooky religion could somehow exist in a world of reason. And eventually, much later than I wish I had, I came to the conclusion that, it doesn't, because it's hokum. And once you have that realization, it is an epiphany from which you cannot escape, nor should you want to.
Right, and because the other side of that is I've been living this lie my entire life, and everyone in my life has been by commission or omission lying to me. And that's a huge thing to try to wrap your head around as a young person, right?
And I was I wasn't a great student, but I wasn't a dumb kid. And I spent time, and this is so embarrassing to say out loud, 17, 18 years old, I spent time trying to figure out on which day God created the pinnipeds, because it says on day 5 he created all fishes, but then on day like, are you fucking crazy?
So Kellum, what's the answer? What day did God?
Yeah.
Oh man, they're timeless. They were there. That was the we that God was talking about in the beginning.
I think we're going to break news here. There was a pinniped Adam and Eve.
God is a pinniped.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not?
We've all read Lovecraft.
It's Pinniped and Steve.
Yeah. Should we take another?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Kellum.
Thanks, Kellum and Jacob, for that. Well, we've gone well over whatever time we had allotted for this. Thank you all so much for your questions.
But before we let everybody go,
what?
Shouldn't we send each other off?
Now,
with a proper farewell.
We want to do a Hosanna shout. Before we do,
I don't remember being told about this. Fortunately, I have some Kleenex handy. So
if you don't have a white handkerchief, it doesn't have to be white. It can be a shirt. You can take it off your body.
Yeah.
I was watching that video again of Russell the Muscle Nelson leading the Hosanna shout with Dallin H. Oaks behind him. And Dallin Oaks was doing his own thing. And it made me think that in a world of Russell Nelsons, be a Dallin H. Oaks. So,
all right. Well, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Mark, who's leading us?
I will lead. All right, are we ready?
And if you don't know the words, that's good. Just try to follow along.
See if you can detect a pattern. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
All right, ready? Hosanna, 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 to God and the Lamb. Hosanna, Hosanna.
We're gonna keep going.
We're gonna do the whole thing.
To God and the Lamb. Third verse, same as the first. Hosanna, 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 to God and the Lamb.
You guys, we just did that literally 4 times faster than the Mormons did it. So,
and we amen, amen, and amen.
Amen, amen, and amen.
Oh yeah. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Everybody. Well, friends, that's it for this week's live show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you, just like we heard from all of these other fine people. Send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you still own a telephone, and who does, you can leave us a voicemail at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. I am also in the afterscape of Twitter at HowToHeretic.
We will learn how to do this one day. And thanks to our awesome patrons.
And thank you to the long-suffering Cody Layton for editing our show.
And thanks to all of you friends, both on our screens and off, for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
Bye.